Here we go. Hi, welcome to my podcast today with Vee Bharakda. I've known Vee Bharakda for about a year, and she was referred to me by another accountant. And you know, I am so glad I met her because she's the most fascinating professional advisor that I think I've ever met. She's got just an amazing wealth of experience. So today we're going to try and track on a bit of that experience. Vee helps clients in difficulty. She's an insolvency advisor, but not an insolvency practitioner. So Vee, just to get things going, tell us a bit about yourself, what you've done over the past 20 years, say, professionally.
So thank you very much for a brilliant introduction, Alan, as always. So Vee Bharakda, the company's called Navigate Business Recovery. We've been trading for 4 years now. And for the last 32 years, I've been working in insolvency, helping directors out of very tricky situations, both from a legal point of view and both from an insolvent or a solvent point of view. So normally, you know, the clients would come to me referred to by an accountant or lots and lots of different ways that a client would come to us, either through an IFA, an accountant, a barrister, you name it, the list is endless. And we would analyse and dissect their personal circumstances, their company circumstances, and find the right legislation to help them out of their tricky situation.
Right. So if I get this right, you're a defence rather than prosecution lawyer. Is that
Yes,
a fair?
yes.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
trust me, I love defence lawyers. I was always a defence lawyer when I was involved in taxation, and I was trained as a defence person always. That's by far and away the best way to do, because who do you act for? The client, rather than...
I could argue till the cows come home for a client, literally.
Okay, lovely. That's brilliant. And you're quite a technical animal, aren't you? Because of your background with people like Wilkins Kennedy and
Baker Tilly, Moore Stevens, yes.
So, and that's very good. So just so people can get an idea of what the sort of things you do, just tell me about the last case you dealt with.
So we had a case recently, and I'm talking literally sort of 5-6 weeks ago, where we've signed, we're still representing the client, and without sort of going into too much circumstances around the client's details, the circumstances are that COVID, like many other businesses, has affected their company. There's 14 to 15 members of staff there, which have all been made redundant. And we are currently in the process of guiding the company and through a process where they can minimize the amount of debts that they incur. So we don't want them to be then incriminated for wrongful trading, fraudulent trading, any antecedent transactions that may be investigated going forward if the company then goes into like a formal insolvency process. So in this instance, the directors of the company had quite a significant overdraft with the company's bankers, and by using the right legislation, by using the right timelines in the way in which the assets of the company were realised and sold and certain creditors paid, we managed to minimise the personal guarantee to the bank to a point where the directors were reasonably happy with the outcome.
Right. I think you sell yourself short, Vee. We've talked at length about this case. Reasonably happy is a gross understatement. They were absolutely brilliantly ecstatic with the outcome. I think that would be fair to say. So, and from my dealings with you, I get the feeling that you act for the directors rather than for the creditors. And my problem with my problem with a lot of insolvency practitioners is and I've got a background in insolvency. I did the exams. Neil Taylor, if you're listening, we love you to bits. He's the world's
Isn't he amazing?
Yeah, he's the world's best insolvency lecturer. So, when you appoint an IP, the risk is, from my perspective, that they become the client's best friend until the day after the creditors meeting, and then they become the client's worst enemy. So could you explain to me and any other people who either are or were accountants like me — I've retired, by the way, peeps, which is why I'm looking happy.
Very happy, if I may add, yes.
Could you explain to me why I should use you rather than an insolvency practitioner?
Yes, I don't think it's an either or. You know, it depends, like we were saying earlier, that it depends on the client's circumstances. There might be some really desperate circumstances where a company's traded for 20, 30, 40 years or longer in some cases, where the directors, all they want to do is get rid of it, and they want to go and get an insolvency practitioner, sign the letter of engagement, put the company into liquidation and be done with it,
Yeah.
because they believe that because of the length of time that the company's been trading, it's not necessary that there's going to be any comeback from a legislative point of view by the liquidator against the directors of any actions that may need to be scrutinized, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So in
Yeah.
those circumstances, the directors are quite, it's fine, go and see an insolvency practitioner. I always get to a position where often the directors taken the jump, gone to the IP, paid the fee, gone to the insolvency practitioner, paid the fee, and then, like you said, the creditors meeting happens, the insolvency practitioner gets appointed, and everyone knows that the insolvency practitioner has a mandatory duty to investigate the conduct of the director. It's not something that he has to, it's not just a tick box.
Okay, Vee, I'm going to have to stop you there because I'm getting frightened. And the idea of an insolvency practitioner investigating me, a director, is scaring me rigid. But am I right in thinking that you would act for the director to stop him, not to stop him because you can't stop him, but to help him go through that very difficult process? Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. So we advise the director, if they were to come to us prior to having conversations with an insolvency practitioner, I would explain to them that this is the process if you go down the insolvency practitioner route.
Yeah. So if I get this right, if they come to you, you will be their best friend throughout the process.
Yeah, hold their hand all the way through.
But if they go to an insolvency practitioner, they'll be their best friend until the day after the creditors meeting, and then they'll be their worst enemy. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, kind of, and only because I have to, we have to just explain this. The only reason is that the main reason is that because the IP has a duty, a mandatory duty to investigate the director's conduct. He doesn't have a choice.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so he has to do, like I said, the tick box exercise, say, has he traded insolvency? Has he done a preference? Has he paid off his mortgage before paying off his creditors?
Okay.
It's a minefield.
Okay, you're getting technical again, and I prefer
Sorry.
best friend and worst enemy because I understand those. Okay.
Okay.
And so, if I'm an accountant in practice, would it not be sensible for me to send people to both insolvency practitioners and to you so they can get two sides of the same coin?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you're very comfortable with that? You're quite happy to have people take advice from both?
100%. I would not have it any other way. In fact, when we speak to directors, we say to them, business owners or limited company owners, we say, always take speak to one, two, maybe three people, because it's good to have your options open,
Yeah, and because this is a very stressful time for clients. So, and this case you told me about earlier, had they spoken to other people?
Yes, they had. They, in fact, they actually sent out 4 emails initially, 3 of them to insolvency practitioners and 1 to us. And we were quite categorically and very honestly told, my colleague Donna, Donna Aldrich, she replied to the email and said, I'm really sorry, but my boss doesn't do fee quotes on an email. My boss likes to see people face to face. We are giving 2 hours free advice because of COVID. We normally do 1 hour. So, give me your number, I'll give you your in, we'll get a date in the diary, you can put the kettle on and we'll just have a chat about your business. And the client eventually then said it was because of that email that they went with us, because initially that email was almost like a very heartfelt, like, we want to talk to you, we want to get to know you email, rather than the other 3 companies sent an email saying, here's our fee quote.
Right. Well, you can't possibly do that, can you, until you know
No.
what the problem is. And also, you would like to think an insolvency practitioner, as far as possible, would actually make sure it was a no surprises experience, that people were able to go. But correct me if I'm wrong, there are circumstances where it is right to use an insolvency practitioner. For example, if you're doing a pre-pack, they would generally be a lot quicker than the official receiver.
So much quicker.
But there are times when it's much better to use the official receiver, But we won't go into that today because we love the official receiver to bits, and we don't want anyone to don't think he's not doing the job properly.
Yeah. But also, Alan, just very briefly to point out that even the pre-pack legislation has now changed, where, in the olden days, and I'm not talking about sort of, 5-10 years ago, I'm talking about very, very recently, the insolvency, that there used to be this pre-pack sort of, a lot of people would criticize the pre-pack only because pre-packs were sold back to the same director.
Yes.
Always. And it was done, the deal was done the night before.
Yes.
The new company, phoenixing it the morning after, same director, same number, everything.
Yes.
But now the pre-pack legislation is that you cannot sell. The due diligence that has to go into place to sell the business back to the same director is quite cumbersome now. So
yes. Okay, we won't go there because
no,
I personally think the government doesn't actually know what they're talking about, but that's another issue. So
that's another conversation.
Vee, what it does show to me is that you're technically on the ball, which is really good. So Vee, I think that probably brings to an end our discussion on this podcast. I have sent a number of clients to Vee, and I usually do what I advise others to do. I send them to both Vee and to an insolvency practitioner. They get a feel. All of them, and I'm thinking of the ones in question, were both qualified accountants, chose to use Vee rather than the insolvency practitioners I sent them to.
Yeah.
So
only because I think the investigation side of what goes on after the liquidation is quite worrying, like you said,
Well, partly that, and partly when directors are in difficulty, they need a new best friend, and you are their new best friend. If James Corden is listening to this, that is a quote from Gavin and Stacey. Okay, on that happy note, if your company is in difficulties, you need to go and listen to Gavin and Stacey, find the episode about the story about the new best friend, and then and then listen, and then come and have a chat with Vee Bharakda, 2 insolvency practitioners, and we'll take you through the process. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
I'm going to end the recording now.